Let's review the topic of easements. The simple definition of an easement is right of way. You will find the topic of easements for those of us who are exposed to the testing facility PSI under the topic of property ownership. When you own property, there's certain things that attach to the property that affect your ownership, and those are labeled as encumbrances. When you're reviewing the breakdown of the topics, which if you don't have that, check out this video up on the right hand side, or you can check out the description to access the breakdown of the topics for those of us who are looking to pass the PSI Real Estate Exam. Easements, rights of way, and licenses, including the effect on title, value, and use of real property, is what we're going to focus on today. Let's start with, what is an encumbrance? An encumbrance is attached to real estate. Well, let's go back and review the definition of real estate. Real estate is land, everything that is naturally occurring on the surface, below, subsurface, and above, which also includes air rights. So it is real estate is land plus man-made improvements. So the property that you are right now is man-made, the driveway is man-made, it is on top of land. A couple of things that are underneath the property, for example, the pipes to bring in the water and the pipes to take out the sewage, and then how high it could go, all that is real estate. So an encumbrance is a claim or right attached to real estate. Liability as well. Anytime you hear liability, you might see the word lien. When you see lien, think of money. So some of us might have the liability of a mortgage, or we have to pay property taxes. The 4 different types of encumbrances include deed restrictions, which is put by the previous owner or the developer in terms of how you're going to use the land. There might be a restriction saying that only goats can be raised on this particular land, as an example. CCRs is where we simplify for those of us who are familiar with homeowners association or covenants. And then we have easements. That's where this video is going to focus on. Encroachment is the starting process that could lead to an easement, and the final step is usually adverse in possession. Let's dig deeper. An easement, right of way, right to use someone's land or real estate, for better terms, for a particular purpose. There are 3 types that we're going to go through: easement in gross, easement by necessity, and easement by prescription. Let's start with the first one, easement in gross. Gross, think of money, your gross income, your paycheck before taxes are taken out. This is someone or company that has the right to use your land. Usually it is because it is for your benefit. You are paying for that service. So easement in gross, think of money. The examples that we have are easement in gross include utilities. You pay to enjoy that service. So for example, your cable or internet that allows you to enjoy, for example, the service Netflix. If your internet is down, you would call the company and they would come survey it. If needed, they might need to dig up your property in order to fix it. So this is a continued benefit that keeps going. There's a company that is maintaining that particular service They have an easement in gross, once again, gross money. The next one is easement by necessity. Necessity, needed. Everyone has a right to access their property, their real estate. If you have some ownership rights, then you need to be able to access that property. So, easement by necessity is a need. It's not something just because I want to do it, it's a necessity. How does this come about? One of the rights of property ownership is that we need to be able to egress, which is to exit, or ingress, which is to enter. We need to have access to our property. How does this come about in terms of an easement by necessity? Most likely, it is with the example of where the property is landlocked and you need to be able to access your property. And in order for you to access your property, there's a driveway needed and it has to go through someone else's property. In my area in Maryland, this is a good example that you can think about. You might have seen it, where in this particular example, there are 4 or 5 mailboxes. This particular driveway is an easement by necessity. These individuals that live here need to be able to ingress, enter, and egress to exit. So, this particular driveway, the maintenance is up to the neighbors. But when these properties were subdivided, the easement was put in place as a necessity to allow these individuals to access their property. More terms that we're going to review. If you have experienced this or have seen this in terms of easement by necessity as described, I would love to hear about it. There are definitely very many examples. Put it in the comments for us to continue learning through each other. Here are more definitions to review attached to this topic. So, easement by necessity, it is needed. Servient tenement is on the deed, or title is going to indicate who is the person providing the service. Servient, service. And then dominant is a person who's benefiting from that easement. The person who's landlocked and needs to have access, they are benefit from the driveway in our example. So the third definition, easement appurtenant, all that means simply is on title, on the deed, which is a piece of paper that's going to be used to transfer the property. The driveway is going to be mentioned on there that it is needed and it's a part of the transfer. When one of the 5 individuals in the previous video sell their property, then the deed is going to specify that driveway in the land description. Easement by prescription. Now, what comes to mind when you hear the word prescription or prescribed? Some of us, I'm going to use the example of you go to a doctor, a specialist, because something is happening and you need somebody to guide you or help you resolve that issue. And then the doctor is going to prescribe something. So, prescription. The reason why I want you to think about prescription and tie it to a doctor is some of us have tasted very nasty medicine. And I use that image or that feeling because this is one of those that it could be prevented. Sometimes it is because we don't know. We are ignorant. We don't say something. This easement by prescription, I'm going to be using the example of a fence. Encroachment is a starting point. Your neighbor is putting up a fence. It is encroaching over to your side because it is on your side. You don't know any better. You don't say anything. And if this fence is in existence for a couple of years, then eventually that space that the fence encroached could eventually become your neighbors. So that's why the medicine of the worst tasting medicine you've ever tasted comes to mind. So there are a couple of things that we need to pay attention to. This fence is open. Everyone can see the fence. It is not hidden. It is visible. You didn't give permission in terms of when the fence was put up, none of you bothered or even thought of doing a survey to confirm your property boundaries. Some of us experience this. You're cutting your grass and maybe you just eyeball it, or you use a tree as your marker, or you use the mailbox, and therefore you were ignorant. You didn't say anything. You don't know any better. The fence is put up. Now, tacking is where it's based on time and it needs to be continuous. Continuous means this fence, if it was put up a long time ago, now the reason why time matters is that each state is going to have the time frame in order for this thing, my example, the fence, to qualify for the individual to take that property through adverse possession. So tacking is where we're discussing how long has this fence been in existence. What that means in Maryland, as an example, it is 20 years. The owners of these properties could have changed. You could have now your neighbor sold the property 4 years ago. The people who bought it are now selling it. Here we're talking about the fence, not based on the owners. So that's what they go by. This leads us to the final step. Adverse possession is the final step of easement by prescription, which starts as an encroachment. In review, your fence that you put up is encroaching onto your neighbor's property. Your neighbor doesn't know any better, doesn't say anything. It is an easement by prescription. It qualifies for you to get that land by adverse possession in Maryland if we can prove that fence has been in existence for 20 years or more. There's a video that goes into this particular topic. Definitely click on the link at the top right or check out the notes on the description below. Keep going. Dear future real estate professional, as you are taking your real estate course, definitely when you finish, schedule to take that exam as soon as possible. You are ready enough. If you have gone and things did not work out as you hoped, definitely schedule to take your exam as soon as possible. I would love to hear about your journey. Definitely share your experience in the comments. I will see you next time. Take care.